Gentlemen, what is going on today? My name is Ryan Mickler. I am your host and the founder of the Order of Man podcast and movement. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing in the mission of reclaiming and restoring masculinity. It continues to become more and more evident that we are lacking strong, virtuous, righteous, honorable, capable men in society. And we're experiencing that with lockdowns and mandates and government overreach and what we see not only here in America, but abroad. And I really believe that if more men stepped up and knew how to step up and were more capable, we wouldn't see so much of this overreach and those attempting to grasp for power over us. And I've got a lot to say about that. In fact, in the coming weeks, I'm going to talk a lot about power and what is it and why should we fight and rebel against it and what do we replace it with? If we're not after power ourselves or we don't want other people in power over us, then what do we replace it with? So I've got some thoughts that I'm going to be sharing with you in the coming weeks on that. But today I wanted to talk with you about our relationship with failure. I've got an experience that I'm going to share with you here shortly. And then I'm going to give you a framework. And I share frameworks with you guys because frameworks work best for me. If I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps, I can more accurately and confidently accomplish what it is I'm after and what I want to accomplish. So guys, if you're new to the podcast, we're interviewing incredible men. We just had Jason Wilson on the podcast, the highest downloaded podcast to date since I started podcasting 6 years ago. We recently had Dan Crenshaw. We had Madison Cawthorn, Andy Frisilla, Grant Cardone, Tim Kennedy, Steve Ranella, John Eldridge. Guys, you know who we've had on the podcast. And then next week, we got Ben Shapiro. So this lineup is phenomenal. And my goal is to help you with the tools and conversations and resources you need to thrive as a man. And I've got a new book coming out, so be aware of that. So make sure you subscribe to the newsletter at orderofman.com so you don't miss any of those. And then just share what we're doing here. All right, that's it. Just share. Tag, take a screenshot of you listening to this or you watching this. Tag me at Ryan Mickler on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, wherever you're doing the social media thing. And this will help get the word out. All right, guys, enough of that. Let's get to this conversation about a healthy relationship with failure. So the other day I posted on Facebook, in our Facebook group, in fact, which you can check out at facebook.com/groups/Order of Man, that we've got an event this weekend. As you're listening to this, our event is currently running. And it's a father-son event. It's all designed to give 20 dads with 20 of their boys the skills and conversations and resources and everything they need to thrive. And I had made this post on the socials about our event that happens to be sold out and how excited I am about it, especially since we're running it from our new facility, which is here on my property in Maine. And what I had said is that 5 years ago, we launched an event and not a single person signed up. Not one. Not that one signed up or 3 signed up and we just didn't have enough. No one signed up. Not a single soul. And so I lost a lot of money in that deal. I definitely lost some pride and I lost some sleep over it as well because I was concerned as to why I couldn't get anybody to sign up. And what I had said on this post is that in those sleepless nights, I spent a bunch of time thinking about how I would make this Order of Man thing work and how I would make these events work. And part of the solution is this event that we're running here and having the property and the facility and everything else. And so the last 3 or 4 years, we've sold out of every single event that we've ever put on and hosted. So I talked about the embarrassing failure that was 5 years ago and that sort of thing. And I used the term failure, right? And I was taken back. I was blown away with how many men came back and said, it's only a failure if you don't learn, or failure is just your first attempt in learning. And you didn't really fail because you got better. And while I appreciate the encouragement and the positive support, I think there's a deeper conversation that needs to be had here. It's amazing to me how incapable we as men are of saying the word fail. We refuse to say it. And so we come up with little workarounds and clever little catchphrases like I said earlier, first attempt in learning. It's only failure if you didn't learn. Bullshit, guys. It's failure. Let's not change the definition of words to fit our own narrative or to attempt to make ourselves feel better about our own inadequacies. And this is very important because if we don't acknowledge and embrace the idea of failure, we're never going to improve. And I'm going to explain that here to you in a minute. And you might think, well, Ryan, it's just semantics. And maybe to a degree it is. But even if it's semantics, I want you to wrap your head around the concept of failure. I've never once shied away from failing. I've never once shied away from failure. Now, I don't believe that I'm a failure. I don't define myself by fails. But the truth of the matter is that I've fallen short of meeting an objective in my life. Whether that's the relationship I have with my wife. A lot of you guys know I went through a separation years, almost 12 years ago, with my wife. That was a failure. Now, we didn't divorce. We're still together. And so you might say, well, see, you didn't fail. Yes, in the grand scheme of things, we're still together, but there were some failings on my part. In my business, I've struggled, guys. I have struggled in so many different areas and capacity of my business. I've failed when it comes to my health. I've failed when it comes to other objectives that I have. And we need to acknowledge the fact that sometimes you're going to fall short. And again, it doesn't mean you're a loser. It doesn't mean you're pathetic. It doesn't mean you're a piece of shit. It just means you failed. And so if we can learn to compartmentalize the experiences that we have, then we can better equip ourselves to not repeat the same mistakes over and over again. But if we're trying to coddle ourselves through our own head talk and through our own narrative about why, oh, I didn't really fail. Like, I meant this is a learning opportunity. Like, that ain't going to serve you, gentlemen. Is it a learning opportunity? Sure. Is it a failure? Yes. And both can exist. Learning and failing are not mutually exclusive. You can fail and you can still learn. You can fail and not be a failure. You can fail and get better. You can fail and do the things you need to do so that you don't repeat the same mistakes next time. They don't exist in this little bubble of like, if I fail once, then I'm just done. My life's over and I'm not a man, and like, just end it right here because there's nothing better I can do moving forward. No, guys, compartmentalize it. You failed. You failed to show your wife how much you appreciated her. You failed to resist the temptations that come into your life. You failed to grow your business the way that you wanted to. You failed to pay off debt. You failed everywhere, all the time. All of us have all failed. And we need a better relationship with the concept of failure, because if we're running away from it, whether we're trying to come up with clever little cute catchphrases, or we're just not putting ourselves in situations where we can fail at all, then how are you ever going to improve? How are you ever going to get better? How are you going to make your life into something that it currently isn't? You're not. So let's talk about a very, very simple framework. This is a 3-part framework. And I would love for you guys to start using the word fail more. Hey, man, I really failed on this one thing. And by the way, that's not the entirety of the thought process or conversation. Well, I failed, period. No, I failed, comma. So therefore, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z next time so I can be better or achieve what it is I'm after. It's not, I failed is not the entirety of your thought process. I failed, therefore I'm going to do this. That's starting to be more of a complete picture. So let's break this down. I work best in frameworks. A lot of you guys do as well. And then let's discuss. Share with me on the socials, join our Facebook group, join the Iron Council, which is our exclusive brotherhood at theorderofman.com/Iron Council. And let's discuss the concept of failure and start having a better relationship with it, and not realize that it's not the end of the world if we failed in any one thing. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to accept that sometimes you fall short. And isn't that what failure is? You fell short of meeting a particular objective. And if you never fail, what if that just means that you don't have any objectives? Right? I've never failed. I've only learned. Well, maybe you ought to come up with some goals and objectives that push you a little further so that you actually fail. Because if you've never failed, then I got to ask, what have you even tried? Have you even tried anything meaningful? Have you ever reached for the stars? Have you ever pushed outside of your comfort zone? Have you ever done something that you did not think you could do? And if you say to me, well, I've only learned, I've never failed. Okay, well, you're playing it safe then. Embrace it, guys. There's the concept of failing forward or failing fast. I actually like those phrases better than I've never failed or first attempt in learning. Fail forward, fail fast. At least you're saying I failed. At least you're embracing it, accepting it. If there's any sort of addiction in your life or struggles in your life, what's the first step? Always accept it. You have to accept it. And if you're not willing to accept it, then period, end of discussion, nothing further can be done. But just accept it. You know what? I failed. And don't label yourself around it. I learned this from my friends over at Mind Pump. If you're fat, it doesn't mean you're fat. It means you have fat. So you would say, I have fat. I'm not fat, right? You're not defining yourself by it, right? You're not a loser. You may have lost. You're not a failure. You may have failed. So we're not going to attach a bunch of insignificant meaning to it. Well, actually, it is significant, but we're not going to attach a bunch of meaning to it that just isn't there. And by the way, if you guys are interested in Mind Pump, good friends of mine, you can go check out mindpumpman.com, Mind Pump Man. They put together a resource for my listeners, 4 or 5 different articles on what they do, health, fitness, all that stuff. But there's a lot of psychology. It's very entertaining that goes behind it. Just check out mindpumpman.com. That's where I learned that concept of you're not fat, you have fat. You're not a loser, you may have lost. You're not a failure, you may have failed. So the first thing you need to do is accept it. And because we accept it, then we're able to move forward into the next 2 steps. And the second step is that you have to analyze where you failed. Now, look, none of us wants to wallow in our failure. If you fell short and you didn't do what you wanted to accomplish, like none of us want to spend any amount of time thinking about any longer than we have to about that embarrassing moment. And guys, it is embarrassing, especially if other people are involved. If I'm in a jiu-jitsu competition or any sports competition or just in business in general, or I've got clients or my family sees me struggle, that's embarrassing. And you know what? That's okay too, because at least it means I care about it. If I was indifferent to my failings, that would probably mean that I don't care. And that's weird. There's not a single person listening to this podcast who doesn't care about aspects of their life. And if there are some of you who are listening, why are you even listening to this? Because this is about growth. This is about progression. This is about expansion. It's about getting better. And so you accept it. And then point number 2, you analyze it. And so you have to revisit it. You have to wallow in the pain a little bit. You have to feel the sting. You have to be uncomfortable. Tim Kennedy said it best in our conversation months and months ago. He said, if you could, and I'm paraphrasing, you guys go back and listen to it. It was very insightful. He said, if you could bottle up, pain and discomfort and being failing and losing and not winning and the pain and the sting of defeat, he's like, bottle that up. I would drink that all day long. And yet what most guys do is they go out and they go straight to the pill or straight to the bottle or straight to the website, right? The pornography website, whatever. And that's where they go, and they bottle that up, they package that, and it's sold to them. And they think, well, because I'm sedating myself, that somehow this just goes away. Well, you guys all know that an ostrich who buries his head in the sand isn't really free from threat. It just can't see it. Our children do the same thing. I've got young children. I've got one who's 5. And so every once in a while we'll play peekaboo. Not so much anymore because he's kind of grown out of that, but even younger, they play peekaboo, right? They put their hands over their face and it's cute. And then when you guys open your eyes, you say peekaboo and there you are. Well, they actually believe that if they cover their eyes, the threat goes away or that you're not there anymore until, of course, they learn. And we laugh and it's cute and it's funny. We do the same thing as men. We laugh at kids because they're stupid, right? And they're not stupid. They're ignorant. They're naive. They're innocent. And yet we don't learn any different as men. Like, oh, I failed. I'm going to go hide in the corner and not talk about it and just like pretend it didn't exist and hopefully nobody saw me. Does it go away? No, it doesn't go away. It's still there. You just never addressed it like a man. And so it has time to grow and metastasize. And then it will rear its ugly head in the worst possible scenario because you never dealt with it like a man. And so you need to deal with it. Wallow in it. Feel it. Feel the sting and the pain and the agony and wallow in that defeat. Not for the sake of throwing yourself a pity party or getting pity from other people, but that you can feel the weight of it. Like when I lose and I fail, I want it to sting because I don't want that to happen again. I don't like the pain. And so I don't want it to happen again. So what I do is I spend a lot of time analyzing. All right, where did I go wrong? With this particular event I was telling you about, it's like, okay, well, what did I do? Was my messaging off? Was my branding off? Do I not have a large enough audience? Was what I was offering not compelling enough? Did people not get it? Was it too expensive? Did I not market it well? There's an infinite number of variabilities and factors that it could have been. And I needed to spend some real time digging into the failure and figuring out what the hell was the problem. And the conclusion that I came to in that particular scenario was that my messaging was off. I did not clearly articulate a unique selling proposition. I didn't have a great funnel for letting people go through that process, eventually to the registration page. And I really, really failed in that department. And I didn't embrace it. And I didn't say, well, see, like this isn't meant to be. That's what a lot of people say. Well, see, I guess it just wasn't meant to be. Or even worse, as a Christian myself, what I hear other Christians say is they'll say, well, you know, it just wasn't God's will. Really? You're going to put that shit on God? You're going to use the tools that he has given you inadequately, inferior to the way that they could be used. And then when they don't work because you didn't use your tools, your voice, your health, your intellect, your connections, the assets you have, you didn't use them to your ability. You're like, see, God doesn't want it to work. No, maybe he actually did want it to work and you just didn't use it effectively. And so you can pray to him for guidance and direction. Sure, you should. And you can look to other people. And that might be an answer to your prayers. Hey, what is this guy doing? What's that guy doing? But you can only do that in this step 2, this analyzation process. What did I do well? What didn't I do well? Where did I thrive? Where did I fail? What assets did I have that were good? What assets do I need that I didn't have access to? Who's done this before? What can they teach me? What questions should I be asking? Break it down. Because when you break it down, you start to move into this 3rd step. And that 3rd step is act. Act. If you're wallowing in your own self-pity and you're like, see, you know, it just wasn't meant to be and God doesn't want it to be. And I'm a failure and I'm a loser and I'm a piece of shit. And like, I'm never going to do anything because that hurts. Okay, well, you didn't complete the cycle, guys. And that's why a lot of you have an unhealthy relationship with failure because you're only hitting one of these things. You accepted it to the nth degree, but you didn't do anything about it. So you failed in one particular instance, you accepted it, and then you put all this weird packaging around it. And you said, see, I'm a failure. I'm a loser. I don't deserve to be here. I don't deserve to have this level of success. My mother and dad did this to me. The economy, the president, my friends, people are out to get me, karma, blah, 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 blah. And you accepted it wholeheartedly. And you never did point number 2 or point number 3. And because you didn't want to feel like shit next time you failed, and there will be a next time, instead you said, well, I didn't really fail, guys. You know, it wasn't a failure. It was a learning opportunity. It was a learning. I meant to learn. Come on now. Let's not fool ourselves. That's the worst thing we can do. We can spend a lot of time fooling other people and dinking around and pretending, you know, like we didn't really struggle as much and try to look good in their eyes, but you're never going to fool the man looking back at you in the mirror. And so if you say, well, I didn't fail, guys. Like I was just learning. It's just, I was training. You know, it's like when you're at the golf course and you step up to the tee box and you take a rip and you miss it. You're like, oh, it's just a warm-up swing. No, you just missed it. And everybody knows you just missed it. And you know, you just missed it. But you tell yourself, it was a warm-up. No, guys, come on now. Let's be truthful. We talk about that a lot. Let's have some integrity. And part of having integrity is acknowledging that you aren't perfect and you aren't as good as you think you are, and you don't always get it right. And when I say you, might as well point it back at me because I'm not always right. I'm not always perfect. I don't always nail it out of the park. It just is what it is. So everybody's got the acceptance part right. Where do you go from there? Do you label that as being you? I'm a failure, or do you say, okay, well, you know, like, look, yeah, I failed. I struggled. I'm at the tee box and I swung and I missed. What do I have to do? Okay, well, I was too far back. My knees weren't bent. My swing wasn't proper. Okay, let's figure it out. Okay, good. And then you step up, you hit it on a line, hit it where you want, put the ball where it needs to be. But you only did that because you accepted it, you analyzed where you went wrong, and then you acted. You took another swing. There's a lot of guys out there who have this like false sense of bravado, this machismo, this excessive pride. Like, I'm strong, I'm bold, I'm assertive, I'm an alpha, I'm this, I'm that. Oh, but no, I'd never get into another relationship. Oh, no, my boss screwed me. Oh, I'd never do that again. Oh, this. Okay. Are you really that tough, or are you afraid? And it's okay to be afraid, guys, but it's not okay not to act in spite of your fear. That's what men do. It isn't the absence of fear. I'm afraid. I'm afraid every time I get behind this microphone, not to the point where it hinders my ability to do it, but I'm like, okay, well, what are the guys going to think? Are they going to judge me? Are they going to like what I have to say? And there's always a small percentage of people who don't, but I don't let it paralyze me, because I realize that the only way to complete this process and have a healthy relationship with failure is by working through the entire process. And the last step is to act. And then we measure our performance again through the acceptance. Hey, you know what? I did really well that time. Or no, I didn't do so well. And we go through this cycle over and over and over again. And so let's cut out the nonsense with the first attempt in learning. And I didn't fail. I was just practicing and I was just learning. And that wasn't a real swing. That was just a warm up. And then you hear guys, this is the one I like a lot, is 2021 was just a warm up. But 2022 is for real. Guys, 2022 is going to be the same as 2021 for the overwhelming majority of you, because you're fooling yourself. You're willingly and openly fooling yourself. Stop. You failed. I failed. We've all failed. Now, what we do from there is what will define us as men. All right, guys. Let me know. Shoot me a message. Tell me about your relationship with failure. Maybe you think I'm an idiot. Maybe I just spent, 20 minutes explaining something that didn't land with you or didn't resonate, or you think, oh, that was stupid. It was semantics. But there's a deeper conversation that needs to be had here. So if you think I'm an idiot, let me know. Not that I need to tell you. You're going to tell me that anyways. But if you think I'm right, you think I'm wrong, or you fall somewhere in the middle, then let's talk about it. Let's discuss. This is what the Order of Man podcast and movement is all about. You can do that at the Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Order of Man. Great conversations happening there. Or you can do that in our exclusive brotherhood, which not only are great conversations happening, but also we're driving each other towards action. We're completing the process, challenges, assignments, accountability, camaraderie, brotherhood, pushing, motivating, pulling, inspiring us all in the same direction. orderofman.com/iron council. All right, gentlemen, let's develop those healthy relationships with failing and failure. All right, guys, we'll be back on next week. Ben Shapiro is on the podcast next week. Until then, go out there, take action, and become the man you are meant to be.